Hello, my name is Guy Adams, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer at DataOps.live. In this demonstration, I'm going to show how the features of DataOps.live support the Snowflake Data Governance Accelerated program. I'm going to cover features broadly in three buckets. The first one is all about the creation of governance objects, tags, masking policies, row access policies, things like that. The complete life cycling of them, so how we create them, how we update them, how ultimately they're deleted if they're not needed, all automatically through a pipeline, but also the permissions around them, making sure the right users have got the right permissions to apply and use these. Secondly, we'll look at the application of those governance objects to the actual objects being governed. So typically applying row access policies and masking policies to tables, applying tags to tables and views and things like that, actually making these governance objects do work in the real world. And then finally, and just as importantly, observability and reporting, we will look at how we can independently analyze, see, observe, report, record everything that's been going on. Because with governance, just doing the right thing isn't good enough. You also need to be able to prove independently that you did the right thing at any point in time. So let's look at the governance object lifecycle first. One of the modules inside DataOps.live is the Snowflake Object Lifecycle Engine. And this is the capability we use to provide a declarative approach for managing every object type inside Snowflake. So as we can see here, I'm using simple YAML declarations to define, in this case, warehouses, the functional definitions, the roles that have access to them, users, data shares, the roles themselves, the resource monitors, and the databases and schemas and everything underneath. So if I look inside here, and we'll specifically use masking policies as an example. So first of all, I've created a profile for grants, so I don't have to repeat myself. And for each grant I create, I don't have to repeat the same permission. So I said these three roles will have apply privileges on those. And then I can look underneath a particular database in the public schema. I've created some masking policies. I've got a string masking policy. I've got a SHA-2 masking policy. I've got everything but the first 4 characters masking policy. And I've got a randomized number policy. And each of those is inheriting the same profile. So as part of that, when I go and run a DataOps pipeline, it will go and create if they don't exist, or update the configuration if they do exist to the configuration here. And that covers creation, that covers changes. And ultimately, if I decide I don't need a masking policy anymore, I simply delete this, commit to my branch, run my pipeline, and it will be removed. So that deals with the first piece of the puzzle, which is how do we create all of the objects that are required for governance inside Snowflake. We've got the functional definitions, which create the objects, and we have the applied masking or the applied grants, which give the grants on those, in this case, masking policy objects, so that the right users and the right roles can access them. The second piece, once we've created those, is the actual application of those objects to the entities and the objects inside Snowflake that we wish to govern. So again, if we go back into DataOps here and have a look, we'll go and look. So all of the entities, all of the governance entities inside Snowflake are built into a modeling and transformation engine, which is built on top of DBT. It's our enhanced version of DBT. And we've integrated it all, again, using a simple declarative model. So if I go and look, for example, at a model here, this is a very simple model of a customer lifetime value calculation, simple group by. But alongside that, I've got a set of metadata. The normal metadata would include things like our automated testing policies and rules. It might include some metadata that we're pushing into data catalogs, but it also here will include the application of the governance requirements. So I've said against the customer ID column, I want to apply this row access policy. Against this column, I want to apply this dynamic masking policy. I want to apply these tags to the object, and I want to apply these grants. So this gives me the ability, every time I define a model inside the modeling and transformation engine, I define not just the functional definition of the model, but I also apply all of the governance policies and controls that go with it. So what we've seen here is the standard creation that you would see in any DBT project, where we have the functional definitions, and we obviously materialize those inside Snowflake as tables, but also the application against that table of, in this case, row access policies, masking policies, applications of tags, and all of the role grants themselves. The final piece to look at here is the monitoring and observability around these governance functionalities. So if I go and look at an actual pipeline that would have been run to generate all of this, we can see the object lifecycle engine we talked about, which is doing all of the creation and the updates and the deletions of those objects. We can see the jobs where those governance objects were applied, where we've applied the tags, where we've applied the masking policies, we've applied the row access policies. And finally, we have a set of jobs here which are running various reports and collecting various pieces of information all around governance. And we can see all those collected in the reports tab here. So I'm going to look at a number of these. The first three I'm going to look at are mapping very much to the things we created. So this is recording at a point in time exactly which masking policies were applied, who were they applied to, which objects, which tables, which columns, which views were they applied to. So we have a record in this report of how the masking policies were applied. We have a similar record of how the row access policies have been applied. We have a similar record of the application and the setting of tags. So those are the first three types of report. We can also, for example, look at access usage. So there's a couple of reports here we can look at. The first one is access time. So this is very useful. This is using the access history for working out which objects are being accessed the most frequently, which objects are being accessed for the most amount of time. This is very valuable for optimizing my pipelines, optimizing my model generation, working out whether things should be materialized as a table or a view. In this case, for example, we've got a set of tables here which are being they're not being queried very often, but they are being they do have a long execution time. That might indicate, for example, that the transformation warehouse could do with increasing its size. We've also got object usage over a rolling period, so I know again how many times an object is being accessed, and I can then track that over multiple pipeline runs and see if that's changing over time. Is the profile of my users changing? And the final thing to look at is what we call the Role Explorer. This is a preview functionality, which is being launched soon. And this addresses the problem inside Snowflake. One of the challenges that people face is the roles and the role inheritance structure is incredibly sophisticated, is incredibly advanced, and you can achieve almost anything, but that does create a requirement to manage and understand what's going on. So a Role Explorer here is designed to allow us to answer questions like, if I pick a particular user, so choose myself, and I filter on that user, or I filter on a role, or I filter on an object, what things are connected to that? So I can find out, as that user, which roles I have access to directly and indirectly, and then all of the different objects inside Snowflake that I have access to by virtue of those roles. So this is allowing me to explore, in the same way I might explore the transformation of data through a pipeline, this is actually allowing me to explore the relationships between users and roles and role inheritance and ultimately all the objects inside Snowflake. And again, from a governance perspective, this is run every single time a pipeline, this is generated every single time a pipeline is run, it's stored against a pipeline, so I can go back and look at any of these reports at any point through history. So if we just review what we've seen tag usage reports, we've seen masking policy, we've seen row access policy, we've seen reports that are using the Snowflake access history, we've seen the Role Explorer. Okay, so hopefully this quick demo has given you an understanding of some of the features inside DataOps.live that support data governance and the Snowflake Data Governance Accelerator program. Thank you for your time. If anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at guy.adams@dataops.live.